Hey guys, welcome back to Monday Nights with Matt and Anna. I am Matthew.
Hello, I'm Anna.
And we're actually reporting to you right now on Father's Day, so any of the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. We hope you had an absolutely wonderful day yesterday. And thank you for all that you do for your families.
Yeah, seriously. The weather was beautiful. Matt and I were just giggling because I participated in an 18-hole golf match with my dad, which I have not done since I was like 12. For those of you who don't know me or anything about me, I played inter-club golf for like 4 or 5 years of my life. And I used to be really good, and then I stopped like completely, and now I'm absolutely horrific. Like I can hit the ball, but nowhere where I could. Anyone that knows anything about golf knows that consistency is what makes a good golfer. Yeah. So I'm mush. The day is over. My brain is halfway here, halfway on my pillow in a horizontal form. But regardless, the Lord is so good, and tonight's topic is something that I think has been taught to both Matthew and I individually in a really powerful way concerning the really negative effects of pride. And we're going to talk about victimhood. We're going to talk about the paradox of victimhood and how even though your circumstance can be horrific, and even though it can feel as though allowing it to define you would be the right thing, it's not, because the Lord has a different name for you in your life.
Yeah. And you never know. I mean, you can come home from work and say, man, work sucked today. Now I have to cook dinner, then I have to make the bed and take all the pillows off. Mm-hmm. But meanwhile, someone doesn't have the opportunity to go to work. They don't have the opportunity to cook dinner in a kitchen. They don't have the opportunity to take 14,000 throw pillows that their wife likes to put on the bed.
Wow, direct
off,
hit.
So they can just use 2.
Felt that from across the room.
But, yeah, I mean, in every single situation, you can be so grateful for where you're actually at, what you have, and especially in America, we have the freedom to talk about God and not have to hide everything. Like, I know in China and in a lot of Middle Eastern countries, there's people who just have one singular page of the Bible and they hide it with their heart and soul, hoping that no one will find it. There's a lot of actual underground churches, and they split it up, and it's crazy to think that we are so privileged to have everything we could possibly want in America, and we sometimes take it for so granted.
Yeah. Even in Nigeria, there's a Christian influencer, I forget his name, but he does a lot of media coverage for what's going on politically in the world concerning Christian livelihood. And I feel like a lot of African countries that have that same persecution level right now. And I think that, the Bible calls the world to a head almost with persecution, because right before the return of Jesus, you're going to see so much angst against the church and so much frustration and political agenda, social agenda against the body of Christ.
Yeah.
And I think that tonight's podcast will really set up for some a foundational mentality to alter the way you see the world so that you can almost appreciate everything. Good, bad, somewhere in between. You would just appreciate it all for what it is.
We're actually going to camp in a few weeks, and I was just talking to Anna that I am so looking forward to God's outpouring in camp and experiencing such an amazing week. But we were talking about how we're going to have to sleep with bugs, and how the showers are lake water, and we can't, it's not what we are used to, but we should be grateful that we can even afford to be at the camp, that we have a car to drive there, we have clothes to wear, we are so, what's the word I'm looking for?
Blessed?
Yeah. We are so blessed to be in the position where we're at.
Yeah.
And I know it's so easy for a lot of us to just take that for granted, but really just take a step back sometimes and think about, like, yeah, this sucks to be in traffic, but I have a car. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I know Matt was saying a second ago, in full transparency, we're recording this for the second time because our monitor just like gave out, but Matt shared on the first round of film that he was watching a video that was discussing how, like, you're only in a lack of gratefulness because you have something that you have something to complain about. Like, if you have a car, it's easy to complain about a car. If you have a house, it's easy to complain about things of a house. And I feel like I even think of times now that the Lord has not tested me in that, but has given me the option to react in a way or not react, and I've failed tremendously because you forget so quickly, as Matt just said, how blessed you truly are. So we're going to be talking about Daniel.
Yeah.
He is a well-known character in the Bible because he is the dude that was fed to lions. But not actually fed to lions. He was just thrown in the lion's den. And his story can be super duper powerful when talking about faith over victimhood. You know, he had many, many reasons to see himself as a victim. When he was really young, he was taken captive from Judah. He was forced to live in Babylon, which was not his homeland. Okay, so he was revoked of his natural culture. He lost his home, much of the life that he had known, basically, as a young boy, too. Not a grown adult with, you know, mental maturity to even contemplate and understand everything that was happening to him. And yet, the book of Daniel portrays him as a character who is just always grateful to God and never ceases to recognize that the Lord is in control. He focuses on the Lord. He stands firm under pressure, even in, like, political affairs against Babylon and everything that's going on in his life. He just chooses to focus on God. And I think that in reference to the subject of victimhood, I would love to make an impact on your life tonight and just change the way that you see your circumstance by knowing that God is always there. He is always there for you. And that nothing, the second point, nothing can define who you are when you're a child of God.
Yeah.
No amount of negative circumstance. So I want to kick off the text with Genesis 50. Verse 20, which says, concluding the story of Joseph, actually, for those of you who know the story of Joseph, he was also a character in the Bible that had a horrible circumstance, and he didn't allow it to define him. But we're not talking about him tonight. I just enjoy this scripture.
Yeah.
It says, "You intended to harm me, but God intended for good."
Yeah, that's a great verse.
Yeah. Because it's the truth. It is the truth that no matter what the world tries to come at you with, right? The weapon may form, but it won't prosper. God will always turn everything around for your benefit when you are abiding in Him.
And you could look at Job, too. I like to think of Job at least maybe once a month, where I'm like, man, work sucks right now. Like, I just want to get in my car and drive home. And, like, it's hot out. I want to go on my AC. Job was stripped of everything.
Yeah.
His family, his animals, like his money, everything. And he still did not complain. He didn't turn against God. He knew that he came into this world naked. And naked he's going to leave. And that everything on this earth is not worth him losing his soul.
Yeah.
And that's such a powerful thing, I think. Just to put yourself in his shoes every once in a while and think, like, I have it so well. Why am I getting so down on myself, or why am I so negative about this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the first key for us to recognize, especially when talking about Daniel, like I just introduced, like Matt's talking about with Job, it's sort of like a repetitious pattern that things are going to happen to you in life that you did not expect. Things that you don't want to happen to you, things that you don't want to deal with, things that you wish would have not happened. And what that says to me is that you cannot choose what does or does not happen in your life, right? Circumstances are going to come your way whether you like it or not. But what is in your control, what is in your power, is choosing how to respond to it. How do you react to your circumstance? How do you respond to things that make you uncomfortable or that hurt you or cause you pain? And I have a list here, and some of them may apply to you. Some of them you may think, like, that would never apply to me. But many people have experienced situations that they did not choose, right? A difficult childhood, that's one of them. That's probably one of the most common. People have experienced betrayal from a friend or spouse, job loss, financial hardship, illness, right? Chronic disease, or unfair treatment.
Yeah.
I think at least one of those in that list has to apply to you today.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that if you are sitting on the other side of the screen and you haven't heard this before, I'm saying this to you in love and compassion, that the choice is yours. It's not anyone else's in how to respond to any of those circumstances. No one can take away how you choose to respond. And Daniel teaches us that we can be victims of a circumstance without adopting a victim mentality.
Yeah.
Because I am in no way, shape, or form saying on the other side of the screen to you, as a friend to a stranger, that something can't hurt you or can't make you feel victimized or can't make you feel pushed into a corner.
Yeah, you can feel like in certain times you can feel actual human emotions, but it's allowing those emotions to become your identity and who you are. That's where you start lacking the fullness of joy and what Jesus has for you. Like, I know people who say, man, every single week I'm just so sick and my head hurts and I can't do this, I can't do that. Like, that's putting yourself in a place of victimizing everything that you do. When you can actually think about it, you can snap out of it because Jesus died on the cross for you.
Yeah.
And you are made for so much more than to just mope around and be upset about everything.
Yeah, it's like the recognition of it too. Like Daniel, in the first chapter of his story in the Bible, it's like everything that I mentioned before happened to him, right? He was taken from his homeland. He was taken captive from his homeland. He was forced into a foreign culture. He didn't know anything that was pushed upon him. He was given a new name. He was separated from his family. He was expected to abandon his beliefs as a whole, like his foundational knowledge of the world. And by a worldly standard, someone will look at Daniel and say, well, that guy has a good excuse to complain. But Daniel, in the middle of that circumstance, he says, in Daniel chapter 1, verse 8, it says, but Daniel resolved not to defile himself, meaning he did not become bitter. He did not abandon God. He did not abandon his faith and his ideologies in the Lord. He stood firm in what he knew, and he focused on what he could control, which was, like Matt's talking about now, like fixing your gaze towards what matters, his obedience to God, recognizing, like, I'm still a child of God. I'm still living the abundance and fulfillment of my Father and of my Creator.
Yeah. And
nothing's going to change that because I say so, not because someone else says so.
Yeah.
Which is so powerful. So, so powerful. There's a quote that I have here. It's so good. It says, your past may explain you, but it does not define you. Your past may explain you, but it does not define you. That's like the roadmap quote. I don't know if anyone's heard of that before, but like it shows where you've been, not where you're going type of thing. Like no one can predict what your future holds except the Father. And he gives you the free will to choose. You know, he lays these paths out in front of you. So much like Daniel, we are called to do the same today. And leading into the second concept, in Daniel chapter 3, we kind of shift from Daniel to many other different people in the Bible that are really well known. But in Daniel chapter 3, we talk about 3 Hebrew boys, and their names are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yeah.
And under the ruling of a man named King Nebuchadnezzar, I know it's a mouthful, he was a hard-hearted ruler. And essentially he built this big golden statue. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say cow, but that's Old Testament. Well, this is Old Testament. Ignore that. Confusing. He basically built this statue and commanded all the people in the land, including these 3 boys, to worship it. And they were followers of God. And they said, no thanks, absolutely not, like, that's not us, all good, like, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And King Nebuchadnezzar was like, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to kill you. And they were like, go for it. Like, the Lord will save us. Our Father, our Creator, our God will save us. And even if He doesn't, like, we're cool with that. We get to go to heaven and be with Him eternally.
We're cool with that.
Well, there's...
Go ahead.
Very informal.
Test me.
Very modern. All my in-laws that are older than me would say, that's so Gen Z of you. But, like, the same thing with Daniel. They faced social pressure. They faced cultural ignorance. Yeah. They faced all of these hardships, and still they stayed so firm in their beliefs. And I know many Christians who will watch this, who are well-versed in the Word of God, know that there's victory on the other side of the story because they chose their response. They chose their reaction. To make a long story short, because you should read the Word for yourself, basically they stayed firm on their beliefs. King Nebuchadnezzar did have the goal to kill them. And he put them into the fiery furnace, which was where he would, commit his executions against civilians during that time. And he looked into the fire. Soldiers looked into the fire and they said, I see a fourth man in there, and it looks like the Son of Man, which was what Jesus called himself on earth. That's so
awesome.
And they were taken out of the fire and honored, and King Nebuchadnezzar got saved and started to follow God, and then everyone in the land also got saved. So, a long story short, your actions, despite how much you may feel like a victim, don't control what you choose to respond at all.
Yeah. I'm not a big doom scroller, but I recently also saw this reel over by us right now in New York and New Jersey. The Islamic Church is growing substantially. You see more and more about celebrities transferring over or becoming some type of Islamic type, I don't even know what that's called.
Like choosing an Islamic religion.
Religion, yeah. And I saw this kid, they took a field trip to a Islamic church, and the church gave all the kids like the hats that they wear and the prayer shawls, and they all like taught the kids, get on your knees and bow. This one kid out of, it's maybe like 60 kids, one kid out of 60 kids, he stood up straight and didn't go down on his knees because that's not what he believed in. But just imagine being, 6, 7 years old, and everyone, and it just hit me, 6, 7. Imagine being that age and you're being pressured into, your friends are doing this, and you're on a trip, it's what you're supposed to do, you're visiting, and to stand up, his parents are probably Christians, or they told him like, this is what you believe in, don't do that. He got there and stood up, and it was just such a crazy act of faith. I couldn't even imagine at that age to step away from what your peers are doing to stand up for what you believe in. It was just really incredible to see.
Yeah, because pressure doesn't change your ability to have a choice.
Yeah.
These 3 Hebrew boys said in Daniel chapter 3, verses 17 through 18, our God is able to deliver us. And they said, but even if he does not, we will not serve your gods. Right? It's like the world will tell you that everyone else is doing it, that you have no other option.
Yeah.
But do not be confused. The option is always yours. No one can take away your moral free will to decide what you believe, to decide who you choose to eternally serve. Jesus made the world that way, that people can force you to do whatever they want, but morally, internally, within your heart, you get to decide what you believe and how things appear to you, define you, make you feel. And that's so powerful. Being faithful to God is not about living a fair life or having fair circumstances all the time. And I think that even though Daniel makes that very evident, and I will talk about that in a second, I think someone who makes it even more evident is Jesus. When he was on earth, I think one of the biggest contradictions of Christ is that he lived a fair life. He literally, on the cross, did not just die for you and I, but every single person that has had breath on this world. Every sin that has been committed was on him in that moment. Every ounce of darkness, every mistake, every violent act, every crime, everything and anything that was negative was on him in that moment, because he was paying an eternal price for us to have salvation. And he did nothing. Yeah. He was a perfect man. Literally the only perfect man. Like, only leading in love and kindness, humility, and gentleness. So, if anyone knows anything about being unfair and not letting it define you as an individual, it's Jesus. But yeah, like I said, you know, all this political stuff was going on with Daniel, and he was lied to, he was manipulated, he was set up, and I think for a lot of people that will sound familiar. It's very relatable. I think of high school girl drama. A lot of those words apply to it on a much lesser circumstance, obviously.
Yeah.
But it hurts in the moment, right? It hurts to feel abandoned. It hurts to feel manipulated and lied to. None of that is good.
That's part of human nature, though.
Yeah, but it's just as bad to allow it to determine your behavior.
Yeah.
I think one thing I commonly hear in my life, especially from people who don't follow, like, a morality, you know, who don't have an ideologic concept to, like, ground them in these types of moments. And I say that from a place of being there at one point and, like, really not even knowing how to respond to things. And honestly, still learning. Like, we're all living life for the first time. So, like, no harm, no shame. Just saying that I think a lot of people in my life that really don't have emotional maturity almost find it more justified to react poorly back to circumstances than figuring out a way to respond in contradiction with it, if that makes sense. I feel like I could say that differently. But I'm trying to say, like, if something bad happens to you and you're simply choosing to respond poorly because something bad happened to you, you're not going to get far. You're not going to get anywhere from responding that way, because it's not going to make you feel better in the long run to be mean if someone is being mean to you. And it's not going to make you feel better to throw a huge tantrum over something because everything came crashing down on you all at once. You know, mental strength, emotional support, and encouragement in yourself, and, you know, following Christ and following the morality rules that He's set before us, and, you know, leaning on His word, His direction, His guidance is what's going to make you feel better as an individual internally later on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key takeaway from Daniel, specifically chapter 6, when all this was going on. You know, we shouldn't let someone else's wrong choices become the reason for your wrong choices. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, it's crazy how some people will allow unforgiveness and hate to just become who they are for a very long period of time, instead of just giving it to God and moving past it. You're going to dwell on this certain situation for years and years and years before you could just change your identity, and that's not who you were made to be, you know?
Yeah. I want to leave you with 3 very powerful truths based on the story of Daniel and kind of everything that he went through. And I encourage you to read the text for yourself. You know, Daniel's chapter 1 through 8 are very, very powerful, very relatable, especially to the younger generation. He was incredibly young when he went through a lot of this. I think when he was thrown into the lion's den, like, he couldn't have been older than 40. He was very, very young to endure half of the things that he did before midlife. And number 1 is that circumstances are real. Do not deny your pain. We are not encouraging you to ignore the real emotional value of your situations and troubles and struggles and all that. You know, pain, suffering, it's all very real. We're created to feel and endure those things. The Bible says that God does not give us more than we can handle. James wrote, be thankful in all circumstances, in all trials and tribulations. Like, if, you know, from the beginning of time, God has been speaking of how we are to overcome our circumstances, not because we can do it by our own strength, but because God has made us able. Number 2, that choices are still yours, that no one is revoking that from you, that you are not powerless, that in your heart you are a separated individual with free will in this world to decide how to respond. And point number 3, that God is still in control, that your story is not over, if the Lord woke you up this morning, if you have breath in your lungs, God is not done working in you and working through you. There is still so much He has for you to do, to learn, to see, to act on, to respond to, all of the things. And that you should never let anything take your faith or shape your identity, because God says that you'll find all that in Him.
We really just want to tell you guys that in every single circumstance you face in life, there is always a positive and a negative outlook, and you have to decide whether you're going to choose to look at it in a positive way where you can be grateful for that circumstance that you're even able to be in there, or you can be in a negative circumstance and negative thought and let that control the rest of your life.
Yeah. I feel like this can go very deep too, because Matt and I said in the beginning, obviously there are very real emotional situations that humans go through, that we do to each other, that are very dark, that will set you in a very, very dark place, whether that's abuse, whether that is thoughts of suicide, whether that is suffering and persecution and political tyranny against your will. There are really real attributes of this world that are incredibly dark.
Yeah.
And still, God says in His Word that He is the light, that in Him you will find joy, in Him you will find direction. So I encourage anyone that may be in that particular spot, where you're just like, you don't understand, I will forever be a victim of my circumstance, I will forever be a victim of this struggle. If you're feeling that way, I encourage you to read the Bible, specifically the book of John, and get insight to who Jesus is, because He is a liberator, a savior, a redeemer, and a restorer. And it's only through Christ. It is only through Jesus Christ that you, as someone who has experienced victimization, can truly overcome your burdens, your feelings, your emotional struggles, or whatever it is that you may be feeling.
Yeah.
And you got this. Yeah. You can do it.
We love you guys. We are so happy you tuned in, and hopefully you're able to just see something that can help you turn around your circumstance today. And we just want to continue pouring out into making you guys be more positive than you have in the past. We're already pretty far into the year. Who knows what 2027 is going to hold for us. But just try to look at everything with a positive outlook and be grateful for what you have, because so many people out there are struggling, and you are in a better position than most people,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we will see you next Monday at 7 o'clock. Be there.
Or be square. Ciao!